Can you imagine what it might be like to be confined to a 12 by 12 space with 17 strangers, people you've never met, for 10 days? There's no shopping. There's no time to relax and watch a television show. There's no iPhone. There is no Instagram. And there is no Candy Crush. You don't even have a book to read. I don't think that I would like that situation personally. But I know two gentlemen who were interested in what would happen if people were confined in those situations. I'd like to present to you Altman and Taylor's social penetration theory. Altman and Taylor in 1973 did just that. They took two pairs of two pairs of 18 men, and they confined them to those small spaces for 10 days with nothing to do but learn how to develop relationships with each other. Altman and Taylor were curious as to what would happen under these conditions. How would relationships develop? That was their question that they set out to answer. Their results, according to Chi, is that they would be known for, and the study would be known for, one of the earliest efforts to understand the nature of close interpersonal relations and dynamic quality of persons and situations that foster mutual regard and intimacy. That is quite a feat. Now I would like us to look back at Altman and Taylor's future. But I would first like to say that Altman and Taylor have compared individuals' personalities to that of an onion, according to Schaefer, also according to Shrek, if anyone's ever watched that. A little bit about Erwin Altman. Erwin Altman received his PhD from the University of Maryland in 1957. He would then go on to serve in the Army as a first lieutenant, where he was assigned personnel psychologist. He would then continue on at the Naval Medical Research Institute in Bethesda, Maryland, as a research psychologist. Dallas Taylor graduated in 1965 with his PhD in philosophy. His first position was, as serendipity would have it, at the Naval Medical Research Institute in Bethesda, Maryland, working right alongside of Erwin Altman. This would be ground zero for their theory and the theory's development. They would then go on to publish their book, The Social Penetration Theory, in 1973. The premise of social penetration theory was to see how relationships evolved and what it required and what it looked like for them to develop. Bach says that their theory was developed in order to explain the evolution of relationships. Relationships are based on the ideas, according to Altman and Taylor, of costs and awards, or cost and rewards. Much like the economic system, or much like a banking account. If deposits are being made, we feel rewarded. When withdrawals are being taken, we may not want to keep going back. So their idea is that when self-closure, when someone comes and self-discloses, that the reward to that self-disclosure would be reciprocity of self-disclosure. Self-disclosure, again, is reinforced by reciprocity. If there is not reciprocity, then the likelihood is that relationship will go nowhere. Altman and Taylor also included a breadth and depth portion to the layers of penetration. Breadth would be categories such as sports, work, religion, those type of topics. And then depth would be the breadth of each of those categories. And I would like to say that in Ecclesiastes 4:9, that two people are better than one, for they can help each other have success. And I would like to think that this is what Dalmas Taylor and Erwin Altman did for each other. And then following along the lines of developing friendships and interpersonal relationships would be Proverbs 18:24, which states, if a person wants to have friends, he or she should make herself friendly. Now I would like to describe the layers of penetration. As you can see here, the outermost blue layer would be the superficial layer. And then we would move down to the red layer, which is the intimate layer. And then we would proceed to the orange layer, which would be personal. And then finally, the core of who we are. To give an example of what each one of these layers and how they're penetrated, what that might look like, I would like to make the story of Samson and Delilah an example throughout to help us understand what this is trying to get across. In Judges 16, we have the story of Samson and Delilah. Most of you probably know that story. So we're going to start with the superficial layer. So a superficial layer between the two of them might sound like this. Delilah walks up and she sees Samson and she says, well, hello, handsome. And he responds with something along the line of, well, hello, gorgeous. That would be superficial. The exchanging of names, possibly. How are you? Those type of things. We would then move into the more intimate layers. This is where people will disclose personal opinions, such as religion, current politics, those type of topics. So for Samson and Delilah, that might sound something like Delilah asking Samson how he feels about the current war, or how he feels about the current judge presiding at that time, since they did not have a government like we currently have. And then his response may be something like, I agree or I disagree. This is also the layer where they might have some little tiffs. And then we move to the orange layer, which is the personal layer, and this is where it gets interesting. At this point, couples or friendships will discuss more personal matters, and that may look something like this. Delilah did ask Samson, tell me, dear, the secret of your great strength. And his response was, if you tie me up with 7 bowstrings, then I will no longer have my strength. And although he was not being forthright with her, he still was allowing the exchange to happen. He was still finding rewards to his disclosure. The very last layer would be the core layer. And that sounds something like this. Dear, do tell me, what is the secret to your strength? Samson's response would be that of vulnerability and truth at this point, where he says, If you shave my head, I will be helpless. So in a nutshell, that's how the reciprocity, the costs and rewards, and the evolution of interpersonal relationships develop.